Okay, let's say you're Frank Costello. You want to watch your friend squirm before the Kefauver Committee answering questions in 1952. Where do you go to do it? He probably had a TV. A lot of people didn't have TV in 1952. He probably did, but what he did was he took his lawyer, two bodyguards, and he went to Manny Wolfs' Chophouse on 49th and 3rd Avenue down in Manhattan to watch the show at the bar. He had a table inside the bar room, and he's enjoying a good meal. Manny Wolfs' 49th Street Chop House was a two-story building. It had once been a buggy whip factory in the 1800s, and then in 1897, the Berman-Schleifer family, who owned a lot of restaurants and concessions across New York, turned it into a steakhouse. By the way, so at that time, steakhouses were all a thing, especially in the New York cut. Anyway, the restaurant was one of the first in America to offer cocktail hour. It was a new thought in those days. They had lunch and dinner and late supper meals. So before the 1920s, that way we're speaking in general terms. Most restaurants they served dinner and that was it. And there were lunch places that served lunch and breakfast places that served. Virtually no one served cocktails. It was all separate things. And these guys realized the wealthy wanted things differently. Times were changing, and they were smart enough to stay with the flow. It was also one of the first, Manny's was also one of the first places in the city to have air conditioning, white tablecloths, and soundproof walls. It made all the difference. And they offered all their meals at, pretty reasonable prices. It wasn't deathly expensive for most people, for the common person. Marilyn Monroe in the 50s was a regular. She loved the place when she was in New York. Anyway, it was noisy and crowded. It had dancing until after 10 o'clock at night. It was a really popular place. In 1977, it became the first Smith and Wolinski's steakhouse. We have one here. I like Smith and Wolinski. So Costello and his party, they sat at a table in the bar under the TV. The reporters sat respectfully a distance away. He wasn't really, he could be so-so with the reporters. And they're watching Costello watch Frank Erickson, the gambler, as he's having doing verbal combat with the committee lawyers on TV. Kefauver was so outraged by Erickson. His behavior was sort of obnoxious, and he refused to take the whole thing seriously. And Kefauver said, "I will hold you in contempt." And at that point, when he said that, Costello and his lawyers got up and they went to nearby telephones and they made calls that lasted a minute or two, hung up and returned to their table. You, I should tell you that Costello did a lot of business with Erickson. They were friends. In fact, when Erickson died, Costello went to his funeral. He came out of retirement and went to his funeral. So at one point, he's watching the screen. A reporter heard him during the testimony, and there was a commercial break of sorts. So one TV reporter asked another crime reporter, "Well, what did you think of Erickson's testimony?" And Costello laughed out loud and he said, "What does he think?" That's a laugh. Later in the hearings, Charles Lipsky, he was an important Brooklyn Republican Party player. He said he had a lot of meetings with Costello's in different places and all that. And then Wolf said out loud, so the reporters could hear it, Wolf being a lawyer, Costello's lawyer, what a screwball he is. So when a reporter stood at the seat at the bar, he asked Costello about the charge being made by George Warren Levy, who was the godfather of modern day harness racing. He said that he had paid Costello $60,000. That was a lot of money to keep bookies away from the Roosevelt racetrack. And Costello stared at the TV, would look at the reporter. He said, "Didn't hear about it, didn't see it." So the reporter persists. And Wolf says, "He's not answering any questions today. He goes on the stand tomorrow in the federal building," meaning he's going before Kefauver. His appearance before Kefauver did not go well. Then a photographer asked Costello if he could take a picture of the watching the proceedings. Costello turned, held his throat, and murmured, "I got laryngitis, I can't talk." And the reporter, who wasn't catching on to this, said, "We don't want talking pictures, just a picture." So at that point, Costello's bodyguards stood up and they stood in front of the photographer to block his view. And then he finally got the message and sat down, stopped asking questions, sat down. When Costello appeared before the committee, he did not do well. He insisted that they show him his hands. He was basically eaten alive. It really hurt him to appear before the Kefauver Committee.
You are Frank Costello.
Yes, sir.
You solemnly swear the testimony to give this committee shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You give your full name.
May I understand whether or not this Mr. Costello doesn't care to submit himself to us as a spectacle, and on the further ground that it would
Be permitted to have the benefit of counsel to the fullest extent, and such.
Now, Mr. Costello continues. At the conclusion of the...
Not to my recollection.
Have you ever used the name Castiglia?
Well, that's, have I ever used it?
Yeah.
Not since I've been in America.
Did you use
My
it before
knowledge.
you came to America?
Well, I couldn't have used it. I was only 2-year-old.
So you never used the name Castiglia?
I was convicted for a misdemeanor.
Were you convicted for possession of a revolver?
That's right. Yes, sir.
March 12, 1915.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
And on that occasion, did you use the name Frank Severio?
I imagine I did then, yes.
You've checked the records, have you not?
Beg pardon?
You've checked the records?
No, I haven't checked
Never
it.
checked the records on that?
We haven't, no. Yes.
Where the...
Later years?
and the earlier years, too, you've already testified, have you not?
No, I haven't.
Well, we'll get to that. But you did buy liquor in Canada?
Can be held without it being audible to anyone else, and we shall certainly see to that. But inasmuch as the...
Will that, with that...
Now, will the stenographer please read the
statement that Mr. Costello made on February 13th.
Did not Mr. Irving Sherman introduce you to a man named James McLaughlin who worked for the telephone company?
Not to my recollection, no.
And didn't James McLaughlin check your wires at your request?
Not to my recollection. I never give anybody a contract to check my wires.
Did you ever get... And then you got a report.
I got a report.
Did you report back to anyone?
I did.
To whom did you report
Irving
back?
Sherman.
Were you paid for that?
No. He did.
I do not have any further questions.
And as a matter of fact, I wasn't even at the dinner table. I was sitting at another table, and I sat down and ate that evening.
Were you introduced to O'Dwyer?
No, I wasn't.
You just saw him there,
I saw him, yeah.
but you saw him with Sherman.
That is right.
The occasion of your checking Phil Costello's...
And rather than to just let it go on, the chair feels it advisable to admonish the witness, who has, of course, the benefit of his counsel, to be extremely careful in this response.
Mr. Chairman, why not adopt the policy?
Yes, sir.
1951, served upon me on January 4, 1951. For 4 years, I repeatedly been faulted.
Not that I remember.
But you did use the name Severia.
And no man, whether it's Frank Costello or Charles Toby or Mr. Wolf, need fear God, man, or the devil, as long as he only enunciates the truth. And we're here to get at the facts. And so, as I heard the examination, and these facts were brought out, I asked to have them confirmed, and I said, if these are the facts, it's evident to me and manifest to me that the man is in this country illegally, and he committed a crime in falsifying the records, that is all.
Conspiracy and the subject of bench warrants in that manner. September 10th, 1925.
Is that...
This won't be bound by the date. It should appear that the official record is wrong.
That's
so understood.
Now, prior to the month of September 1925, did you or did you not engage in the business of selling, purchasing, transporting, or possessing alcoholic beverages within the United States?
No.
You did not.
No.
Prior to 1925, did you purchase alcoholic beverages in the United States contrary to law?
No.
Prior to 1925, did you know Harry Saucer?
Yes.
And prior to 1925, did you know Frank Goss?
Yes.
And what? And under these circumstances, I asked the committee to require the witness to answer the question.
Counsel, do you desire to be heard?
I don't think it really necessary on a question of that sort, but if there's any doubt at all in the minds of this committee on that question.
Costello, what is your net worth?
I refuse to answer. It might tend to incriminate me.
The committee directs that you do answer, and I would understand that
I understand a direction is made and a refusal is made.
right.
I suppose so. Is that not so, Mr.
Yes.
All right. Next question.
Now, before proceeding further,